Well, let's cut across to the live visuals of the bilateral meet. The visuals of the bilateral meet between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the French President Emmanuel Macron. Of course, there were a slew of issues which were discussed, from defense procurement to bilaterals. Take a listen. All right, we're getting the live, which the French President Emmanuel Macron will be traveling to New Delhi for the for the AI India Impact Summit. The two leaders later in the day will be inaugurating India-French Innovation 2026. And well, for more on this, my colleague Vishnu Som is now joining me live. Vishnu, now we have the live visuals of the bilaterals which are underway, of course, with defense taking the center stage. Tell us about the significance and what can we expect once the press release comes out.
Well, the press release is going to exactly say what areas the two sides are focused on, but it is an important strategic relationship, the one between India and France. There is a great deal in that, and the President of France began his visit by actually going to Mumbai first. So let's try and see if we can get a couple of more details on this, which should in fact be coming in a little while from now. But expect this entire equation to only go up. With common strategic interests, common interests in AI, common interests in medicine. There's a great deal of French interest in the Indian nuclear program. There are nuclear reactors by the French, which, they want a deal to progress. So these are all areas which are likely to be looked at very closely. In terms of deals or announcements between the two sides, don't necessarily expect any big ticket ones. It would be interesting to see if there is mention of defense deals. A couple of them might be through, but the Rafale process, as we've been reporting, might take between 6 months to 1 year.
Vishnu, we've also been told that we can expect a dozen of agreements between India and France, like you also mentioned, which will cover a slew of areas from defense, AI and cultural ties at the epicenter, because in moments from now, India and France will also be inaugurating the India-France Innovation 2026. So, like you mentioned, no big tickets there, but a host of issues on the table, perhaps strengthening the ties between India and France.
So again, there have been important talks between India and France which have taken place. There's an exchange of MOUs which has already taken place. If we stuck to that schedule so far, there will be a press statement issued, and we cannot prejudge what that press statement will say. We'll have to wait and see what they've agreed on. At 5:20, so that's at about 22 minutes from now, the two leaders will be participating in the India-France Innovation Forum. That's at the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in Mumbai. And then at 7:15, there's the India-France Year of Innovation and Cultural Commemoration at the Gateway of India. So India and France celebrating, the relationship. It's a very close one. And then tomorrow is when the President of France, Mr. Macron, comes over here to Delhi. He'll be at the summit. Remember, India is looking to declare, it's called the Delhi Declaration on AI that has an impact on countries around the world, including France. We're talking about international standards for AI. So he'll be a part of that entire process. Further talks likely with the Prime Minister. Do expect a personal sort of dinner or meal between the two. It's happened in the past. We can't rule out whether that would happen before day after tomorrow the President of France returns.
While you've mentioned about defense and AI, we have to talk about the cultural ties, like you also pointed out. The India-France Innovation 2026, which will be inaugurated in around 15 minutes from now. And also, a short while ago, we showed the viewers about the images of the French President and the First Lady of France meeting the Bollywood stars, perhaps showing the camaraderie when it comes to cultural ties between India and France.
Well, these are atmospherics in a relationship. It's not really the substance of the relationship. We did, for example, see the French president go on a run earlier on today. That's something that Prime Minister Modi acknowledged as well. It's a close relationship between the two sides. There's obviously an interest as far as Bollywood is concerned. There always has been. And so, a meeting between the French president and Bollywood superstars at a time when he is in Mumbai is perhaps expected. But that cultural center is something that, is of interest. But I dare say this entire visit is primarily sort of revolving around artificial intelligence and AI, and the entire host of conversations which take place over here, and indeed defense, as we've discussed.
But absolutely. But while we spoke, we showed those visuals of the body language of both the leaders. Vishnu, tell us about how significant is this visit, fourth visit by the French president to India, especially with all the headwinds and the geopolitical uncertainty that we're witnessing today.
Well, for starters, India and France don't have any headwinds or any geopolitical uncertainties which plague the relationship. It's been an incredibly strong relationship. It's been a relationship where France is among India's largest exporters of weaponry. Several key systems, in fact, are closely involved. Several French companies are closely involved in working with Indian companies for the sale of weaponry. We talk about Dassault, we talk about Thales, we talk about Safran, that's an engine manufacturer, looking to get into a very major defense deal. There is the Hammer guided weapon, which is something which will be manufactured in India by Bharat Electronics Limited. So that's one system that's on the cards. The Meteor missile, a primary air-to-air missile of the French, which has been in service with the Indian Air Force, including, as I understand, during Op Sindoor. Those are all major sales which have taken place. The Scalp missile system as well, which I believe hit several targets in Pakistan during the entire process. That's something, Operation Sindoor, that's something that, both sides would certainly be looking at very, very closely indeed in terms of future orders. In fact, there is, more of these which are being acquired. Apart from that, there is the educational link between India and France. France, while it's not certainly a country of choice for Indian students, does see a fair number travel every single year. Indians across the board traveling to Europe as part of that Schengen process would like to see visa approvals happen quicker and sooner, and that with fewer conditionalities. But that's a larger issue, but certainly something that both sides know is one that impacts people on both sides. And then, of course, there's that personal chemistry. Now, as far as India and Europe is concerned, our equation with Europe is increasingly different from our relationship with America, which some would say is becoming increasingly transactional. With France, there is a lot of dedicated, genuine tech sharing, whether it comes to AI or nuclear reactors or a lot more, which is why, let's see what emerges in that joint statement.
Absolutely. But like you mentioned, a host of issues will be discussed and MOUs will be signed. Let's also get in my colleague Aditya Rajkar, who's joining me live from Bharat Mandapam. Aditya, while Vishnu has lamented the defense ties, which is at the epicenter, and artificial intelligence, tell us about the cultural ties as well. Of course, we saw that hug and the handshake between both the leaders. And a short while ago, we also had the visuals of the French president and the First Lady of France meeting all the Bollywood stars there. The camaraderie and how the cultural ties, the people-to-people ties between both the countries is only strengthening.
Well, that's right, Rahesha. There's been people-to-people contact between France and India. There's a strategic partnership, but above all, there's a bonhomie that is being spoken about repeatedly between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Macron. Immediately after he landed here, there were warm hugs, there were handshakes that happened at the Lok Bhavan where they met in Mumbai. There is a 3-day plan laid out for this very important and significant visit of the French president, where at the Lok Bhavan there are strategic bilateral talks that are underway. We'll have the joint statement perhaps in a couple of hours from now, giving details of the entire ambit of the understandings and the relationship bilaterally between France and India, from innovation and AI and technology partnership to defense and strategic affairs, and then health, agriculture, pharmaceuticals, and several other areas, including the aeronauticals are a very significant part of it. Even as we speak about the Modi-Macron chemistry in Mumbai, there is, of course, the Airbus assembly line that will be inaugurated in Bangalore as well. Apart from that, Macron comes to Delhi tomorrow, where we'll have a very significant day planned. We'll have the grand, red carpet gala dinner that will happen here at the Bharat Mandapam of all the global leaders and CEOs and heads of the states who will come here at the AI summit right behind me, the main epicenter, which is the Bharat Mandapam. There will be the family photograph, but Macron has a lot of side events. Apart from in Mumbai, he's meeting the CEOs of companies who are into innovation. Yes. He'll meet a lot of Bollywood personalities there as well. And then in Delhi, he will sign a health agreement, which is incorporating AI in health. So that would be very, very significant and interesting. Apart from that, also, there are other events that are planned out for the French president here in Delhi when it comes to people-to-people contact and other significant, diplomatic measures. So a very packed schedule for the leaders. But today is the day when the significant brass tacks happens, and we'll know what the both countries have agreed on scaling up the industrial ties and otherwise in a couple of hours from now.
Absolutely, Aditya. It's the French connection only getting stronger between India and France. Vishnu, if I can come to you, you've elaborated on the defense deal, which is at the epicenter. Talk to us more about how France right now is seeking to expand its military partnership with India, because at this point of time, India is not only just buying equipment from France, but will also be jointly making.
So France has always been a very close partner of India when it comes to military. And let's look at the air forces of both sides and look at the aircraft platforms that India has historically operated. One of the first fighter aircraft that the Indian Air Force acquired in the 50s was the Uragan. Then there was the Alizé. Then there was the Tufani, which was acquired. Then there was the Jaguar. Then the Mirage 2000. Then the Rafale. Then we've had Chetak and Cheetah helicopters. So, this is just decades of aircraft which I've just named, which have done service for the Indian Air Force. And so now when India acquires more Rafale aircraft, it's perhaps part of a process where Dassault has been part of India's military aviation for so many decades. It's an incredible link. But that's just one part of it, and just one more point on that. In as much as we keep talking about our equation through the decades with the Russians, just looking at this expanse of contracts with France, there's a real history there as well. So what the French are looking at now is also to step up on engine manufacture of jet engines. That's the holy grail of military engineering. So Safran, the engine manufacturing major of France, might be getting into a process over here in India. So there are talks which are on. Let's see how those progress.
Right, Vishnu. Coming to you, Aditya, this is the first visit of the French president after the mother of all deals was signed between India and the European Union. Tell us more about that and as to how the ties between India and France is only getting stronger. Of course, this is the French president's visit after a year before which the Prime Minister Modi visited France when the AI summit took place there.
That's right, Rahesha. This is the fourth visit of the French President Emmanuel Macron, even as NDTV continues with the marathon coverage here at the Bharat Mandapam. A lot of diplomatic, hectic activities taking place both in Delhi and Mumbai. A lot of world leaders have now, started coming in and trickling down in both these important cities, Delhi and Mumbai. A lot of them in Bengaluru as well, because that is, in many ways, the IT capital, apart from a lot of emphasis on Telangana and Andhra. Here, of course, we'll see hectic activities over the next 2 days. But right now, the focus is in Mumbai, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the French President Macron are meeting. There are a lot of issues that are being discussed, from trade to energy ties, and of course, significantly people-to-people contact, but the most crucial being the defense and the strategic cooperation. You also spoke about how artificial intelligence has been incorporated into this relationship. You would remember last year Prime Minister Narendra Modi had visited France and being part of that important AI summit that was hosted by France. That was the third summit after UK, South Korea, and finally third was the France. The fourth and the most significant global summit is taking shape right behind me here at the Bharat Mandapam, and that's what they will be speaking about. Of course, the mother of all deals is the big backdrop of this entire summit. We had the entire EU leadership just a few weeks ago visiting Delhi and finally signing that deal. That came after a year-long turbulence, economic disruptions taking shape globally. And that really forced India and EU to come together, pushed them together in many ways, because that entire deal, entire framework was being discussed for almost 2 decades. And that will be a significant part of the discussion between Prime Minister Modi and the French President Macron, taking the relationship when it comes to trade, commerce, industry and investments forward. And in these meetings with CEOs of companies that deal with innovation and of course Bollywood as well, trade, commerce and films will be the big talking point. So we are looking towards a lot of side events. We are looking towards a lot of soft power also on display, apart from the defense and the strategic cooperation between India and France.
Right, absolutely. And just to add to that, India and France have completed 26 years of partnership. It's a strong bond that both the countries share. Vishnu, if I can come to you, talk to us more about India's Rafale journey, because we are we are anticipating that big ticket deal between India and France.
So do you want India's Rafale journey in the form of a book, or do you want it in the form of a 2-minute answer? You're going to have to tell me that, because I've tracked that story that closely.
2-minute answer, of course.
So the entire process began when India wanted... you're eating into my time. The entire process started in the late 90s when India wanted an aircraft to add on to the Mirage 2000 fleet. It was called the MRCA process. A couple of years later, that became the MMRCA process. That then stretched on all the way till approximately 2016. I'm talking about the late 90s to 2016. Before that MMRCA process was entirely scrapped, and India went into a deal with the French for 36 Rafale aircraft, meeting just a fraction of its actual requirements. That then changed with the Indian Air Force once again telling the government that they wanted at least 114 more planes, and then that process became called the MRFA process, or the multi-role fighter aircraft project. Just last week, that multi-role fighter aircraft project sort of moved ahead with an acceptance of necessity for one aircraft, and one aircraft alone, the Rafale. In other words, all of the other competitors in this deal were actually taken out of that shortlist process. Now, once that acceptance of necessity, progresses into a deal stage, which should take between 6 months to 1 year, it'll still be a couple of years before India gets this batch of 114 jets. One final point: last year, the Indian Navy did sign a contract with Dassault for 26 naval variants of the Rafale, which will do service on our aircraft carriers.
Well, that was within 2 minutes, Vishnu. But coming to you, Aditya, Vishnu, they're giving us a lowdown of strong defense ties between India and France. But Aditya, this meet, these bilaterals which are underway between India and France, it will perhaps shape the next ties between India and France, because what we're looking at right now is not just defense. It's AI, it's clean energy, and it's strong cultural ties between both the countries. And of course, the camaraderie and the bonhomie between both the leaders.
Well, I can't possibly do justice to the mammoth 30 years experience of Vishnu Som, but I'll do my bit when it comes to diplomacy and what I have seen over the last decade or so. And that is significantly the bonhomie between Prime Minister Modi and the French President Macron. From Paris to New Delhi or other multilateral forums recently, when they had met, he joked about, Prime Minister Modi joked about the French President having a Twitter fight or a tiff over some diplomatic issue. Recently we've had issues over the Greenland also framing up on the sidelines of the Davos. We saw a lot of angry remarks from the European leaders, including the French President Macron, on this entire issue. But there seems to be some diplomacy at play as of now on that issue. It's important to also mention, apart from the gamut of issues between India and France, from technology to strategic affairs to defense to people-to-people contact, there would be significant geopolitical issues also that would be discussed. And two of them, one, of course, the Russia-Ukraine issue, where India has said that this is not an era of war, solutions cannot be found in the battlefield, and India has engaged with both Putin and Zelensky. On the other front, with Iran, India has very robust bilateral cooperation with Iran. India has very important strategic partnership with Israel, and has been, of course, a very important strategic partner of United States over the last 2 decades. So Iran and Russia-Ukraine would be perhaps discussed when Modi meets Macron, and that meeting is taking place right now. Any minute we can get a glimpse of a joint statement, either verbal or in the form of a text, that would lay the entire, gamut of understanding that they've reached in the last couple of hours, and what they look towards possibly to achieve in the next 1 year. And that will significantly have an imprint of technology, artificial intelligence, innovation, and new tech and emerging technologies that would be the big talking point in these joint statements. There could be further collaboration that we could see in areas of health, agriculture, pharmaceuticals, in aeronauticals as well, that we expect. So that's the big talking point. As I said, immediately after the joint statement, we'll have a couple of meetings that the French president has lined up in Mumbai with CEOs, with global leaders when it comes to corporate world who are based in Mumbai, and of course from the world of Bollywood, from the world of Indian cinema.
Absolutely.
So the Durandars of the Indian cinema will be meeting the French president, and we could possibly see some collaboration on that front as well.